Hey guys, Coach Bret Contreras here. This is going to be a video to explain why, if you're trying to maximize athletic potential, why you would want to do heavy resistance training and explosive training. So here I've got a graph of a force velocity curve, okay? On the y-axis is velocity measured in meters per second, and on the x-axis here is force measured in newtons. So this shows you I've got 2 points on the spectrum here. I've got this dot and this dot. This example would be like a vertical jump. Okay, here you've got a vertical jump, and here you've got, this example would be like a squat. Okay, that's your heavy squat. So if you do a vertical jump, your force isn't quite as high because it's not a lot of force. You're just using body mass, but your velocity is higher on the spectrum. Whereas a squat, you're using heavier weight. You're going to have more force, but you're not doing it as explosive. Your velocity won't be as high. So here are two different points on your force velocity curve. And when you undertake, so here's your baseline strength. These different examples will be, hypothetical scenarios of, like, say 8 weeks of heavy resistance training would be in the green, 8 weeks of explosive training in the red, and then blue would be combined training. I'll explain this more in a second. So let's say I take a normal person, a normal athlete, and I do 8 weeks of really heavy, heavy resistance training, squats and deadlifts and hip thrusts and bench press and stuff like that. Okay, what this is going to do is going to shift the whole curve, but it's going to shift the curve more on the force side of things, but it will help increase their explosive force as well. So here's what the new curve looks like. Okay, so as you can see here, it extends this curve out a little bit on the velocity side of the equation and more so on the force side of the equation. So now I've got, here's my new squat. I'm a lot more, I can, at the same force, I can now produce it at more velocities, but now I can also squat heavier, but it shifts the whole curve over. Okay, my vertical jump went up too, Now the new point is right there. However, let's say I do 8 weeks of explosive training, okay, this doesn't affect the force side quite as much. But it affects the velocity side of the curve more. And so, yeah, it did help my squat come up a little, but it helped my vertical jump tremendously. So now, my new vertical jump is up here, and my new squat is only here. However, what this curve shows us, what this graph shows us, is that neither of these are ideal just doing one method. If you do combined training, so if you did both of these methods, you would take the best of both of these curves. And so here you've got the red. So here's my blue curve from combined training. You've got the red, follow it down until it meets the green, like that. So as you can see, here's your new curve. And so if you do combined heavy and explosive training now, you have shifted your entire curve to the right. You can produce more force, you can produce more absolute velocity, more absolute force, but every point in the middle, every combination of those has now increased. You've got a more explosive athlete now. And in a lot of sports, say for example, an NFL football player, he needs to be able to produce a lot of force with his own body weight, a lot of acceleration, a lot of explosive strength just with his own body weight, but he also has to be very strong because he might have an opponent on him and he's dragging an opponent. So he needs to be strong at every end of this force velocity curve. And so this helps illustrate why you would want to do both heavy training and explosive training.